Okay. We will stand for the prayer. Father in heaven, we thank you right now for your goodness and mercy. We bless your name because your name is worthy to be blessed. We thank you for the spirit of love. We thank you right now for blessing how you're taking care of us. We pray right now for peace all over this land and country. And we thank you, Father, for what you've done thus far. We love you now and we hope and we live, we love you, we're dependent on you. And you're all that we have, the only hope that we got to save man's soul. Help us now. Protect those around the world that's fighting. Father, those that need adjustment of the heart, we ask you to be a heart adjustment. Thank you now. We bless you again. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And just before we start our meeting, we always have housekeeping thing item we would like to share with you. The conference line has been set up, and the line number is 1917-900-1022. The access code is 32347 pound sign. This is not a toll-free number, and you may be subject to your long-distance charges according to your long-distance plan. If you wish to speak, you have to dial 5. The moderator will unmute your line, and when it's your turn to speak. By announcing the last 4 digits of your telephone number, please announce your name and address, and you will be allowed to speak for 3 minutes. Any person wishing to address the board regarding an agenda item will be given 3 minutes. 3 minutes for comments. A commenter may speak only 1 time for each agenda item. With that being said, do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve the revised agenda.
Motion second, all in favor? You need to announce what that revised agenda item is. Senator Lorraine Austin on 16, 16 or 15A? 15A. Okay, 15A would be Senator Lorraine Austin. We'll go to consent items.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am?
On the consent items, I would like to pull number 11 off for discussion.
Okay.
We can have it at the end or wherever.
Okay. We'd like to pull number 11 off. And have a discussion. What about the other 10?
A motion to approve the 4 through 10 of the consent agenda.
Second. Motion second, all in favor saying aye. Now, number 11, we go directly to it. The board to consider approval of a request for proposal advertising for roadside right-of-way mowing as agenda by Wanda Penman.
Yes, this program, since I've been here historically, has been substandard in that it does not keep our right-of-ways clean. We only have 4 mowing cycles a year. And if you look around in your district, you'll see how the sides of the roads are blown up. Around stop signs and other fixtures, there's no weed eating. It just hasn't been satisfactory in my opinion, and a lot of my constituents and your constituents have stated that they think that, and I think that we can do a better job at that. So I would like for us to consider something different. Maybe just talk about it on our next workshop or something about maybe hiring our own crew. And I know that we have to purchase equipment and we have to hire people, but for the amount of money that we spend, for the little bit of work that we get, I think we can do a better job if we can figure out how we can fund that. And then just that way, we would have a year-round crew that would always be keeping our roadsides clean, not just 4 times a year. Now, I know we've got the sheriff's department, LaWanda, and, maybe we could still work in conjunction with the sheriff. I don't wanna, do away with that because they do a lot of park cleaning and stuff like that.
And they try to fill in the gaps as best they can.
Right.
Do you wish to move forward with advertising for this so we can actually have a more up-to-date cost proposal? And then we can compare what the cost
I
would be?
think that would probably not be a bad idea, and that way, because I just have a gut feel with everything else that's gone up, gas, groceries, everything. That I've got a feeling this is gonna go up too.
Yes, ma'am.
So, we could do that, and then look at what we're facing when the bids come in.
Correct.
And then look at, and I just feel like we would have more control if we had our own crew, and we'd have them year-round, not just the 4 times a year. But there's plenty to be done all year round. If nothing else, picking up trash.
And another possibility, just for consideration, is if we could obtain another squad from the prison, and then possibly contract another correctional officer. There are several different ways we could do that for this type of labor.
Yeah, my ultimate goal, though, is to have our county looking better. For the amount of money that we're gonna have to spend, I just feel like we could do a better job in making Tyler County look better.
Okay. You put that in the form of motion, or you just gonna ask the administrator to do that?
Does it need to be an emotion?
Well, I would need a motion to approve advertising, so I would need a motion to approve the documents and to advertise. And then if your preference is to wait until the bids come in, then at that time, we will look at the other options as far as either running our own crew, and then we can actually look at the cost.
Okay, now I know that the contract that we have now expires at the end of this month, but I don't think that anything is gonna happen in the next few months anyway. Typically, our mowing cycle doesn't begin until well into the year.
Correct.
So,
We have some time.
yeah, so my motion would be that we go ahead, and advertise for proposals, and then, to evaluate that and move forward with looking at hiring our own in-house crew.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Motion second, all in favor, say aye. Aye, go ahead, good. All right. Then we go to bid public hearings. Number 12, Wanda.
For this item, the necessary title work is not complete. What we would ask is that this public hearing be continued to April 19th at 9:00 a.m. That way, we will not have to re-advertise, and hopefully by April 19th, we will have everything we need to move forward with the Clark property swap. And of course, this is for, yes, sir.
Okay, we need a motion, move this to April 19th.
Motion to move item 12 to.
Second. Second, all in favor, say aye. Good. Thank you. We go to item number 13, the board to hold a public hearing set for this date at 9 a.m. as soon as possible to consider adoption of resolutions to abandon a portion of First Street Northwest located north of Fifth Avenue, northwest between the blocks of 119 and block 106 in the Steamhatcher subdivision, with C.D. King and a public hearing. Okay, now anyone from the public would like to speak to item number 13?
You want to see the resolution?
Okay, we can read resolution by title only.
Motion
Okay.
read resolution by title only. Second.
Motion second, all in favor, saying aye. Okay,
not much of a resolution title on this one.
Okay.
If you look at it, it says, "Be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners of Taylor County, Florida." I'm just gonna read the first part of, number 1 on that. That pursuant to the notice of proceedings for closing the streets duly published according to law, approved publication of which is attached hereto and made a part hereof, a hearing was duly held to consider the vacated abandonment of those certain roads.
Thank you.
Then you ask for, is there anybody for it or against it?
Okay, from the public.
Yes.
Is anybody for or against that from the public? I want to speak to it. Yes, sir.
I'd like to, I'm Carl King with CD King and Company.
You come to the podium.
You said the name was Carl.
Carl King. Yes, sir. I've talked to Mr. Page, which owns the, lot 7, 8, and 9. And Mr. Lepka, which owns the rest of the lots going north. They're both in agreement. As a matter of fact, Mr. Page has just bought the properties, the 3 lots, 9, 8, and 7. And that property is fenced off already, part of the, First Street Northwest. So, I don't know if you've got the survey, but, the survey shows it, being fenced off already, so they're both in agreement with closing that.
Okay.
That was it.
So you see, again, you the one want the property. You the one filed the application.
That's correct, yes.
The event.
Yes.
All right. Is there anyone from the public on the air who'd like to speak to this?
No, sir.
There's none?
No, sir. There are several people on the line, but nobody has their hand raised.
Okay.
Commissioner Meady.
I wanted to ask, what is the main purpose of wanting to close that? I mean, and separate between the neighbors?
To be able to go in there and underbrush that and make it usable instead of just a catch-all for trash and whatever comes along. So I talked with the county engineer, there's no reason to push that road any further because at the end of that block is the end of the Steve Hatchett subdivision. So it goes into a wetland, a little pond back there. So it would be turned into usable, property versus a catch-all.
It's right, straight across from Roy's there,
Well, yes, sir, that's First Street Northwest, but it goes all the way down to where it dead ends in the 5th Avenue. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Bishop, if we abandon this property, then what does that mean?
Well, that means, number 1, that, the adjacent property owners to this, where you abandoned, will get a deed, and I think that this corporation or this LLC is the only one, and so that, once you pass the resolution, then you, the property is deeded to the person that's requesting the closure.
So, it's my understanding then that, that this property is, the market value is $15,456.
Not bad.
And then on the next agenda item is way more than that. And so, you know, we need to quit giving away public taxpayer property. We need to stop that. And I know we've done it in the past, but when you know better, you do better. I would say if someone would like to purchase this land, then sell it to them for the market value, but we need to stop giving away taxpayer money. We're getting a lot of flack for that. So that's just my opinion.
I don't say one thing to that, if you don't mind. I've seen 50 by 100 lots sell down there for $90,000 in Sting Hatch. And there'd be, that could very well, you know, be the value of that piece there. I mean, 50 by 100, big enough to build a house on. And, a lot, they sold around Steinhatchee on both sides of the river for that kind of price, you know. And that goes on with what you say.
Well, I would submit to the board also, though, on the flip side of that is, if I understand the rules, that each adjacent property owner would get 50 foot of that 100-foot right of way. And then that property would thereby be put on your tax rolls, where you would be receiving, taxes, where you aren't now, where you have actually, I mean, there's quite a bit of trash on it now, so you've got, you know, you're coming out of that liability of having something happen, four-wheelers, whatever, you know, anybody that's familiar with Steinhatchee knows how the ATVs are running through there, so that would be the upside of granting the closure.
Yes, sir. And by the same token too, if y'all purchase that, it would be on the tax roll also. It's just that we, in my opinion, we cannot keep giving away taxpayer property. That belongs to everybody. And we're getting a lot of flack for doing that. Like I say, it's happened before, but when you know better, you do better. And I just don't think that's something that we should do.
Would you recommend putting that up for sale?
Yes. If it's there and does it, first of all, does it connect to the water? Is it a connection to the water? Okay. Then,
Mr. Chairperson, could I ask our building official, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
Jamie, is this a buildable lot?
This, the one in block 119 is only 20 feet wide. That's the other way.
The alleyway, the First Street Northwest, is that buildable?
It's predominantly wetland.
Okay.
That's one of the things I'd like to address, and in these areas, we know the issues that we continue to have with flooding. So that if we abandon this for development, then what's gonna happen with that wetland and where those waters have been collecting? Are they gonna be pushed off on these adjacent landowners? So this is something, even now in the areas, I've been there, seen this particular place, and it looks like that there's already been a road constructed across a piece of a wetland that's down there now that perhaps would have, let's say, issues with floodwaters and things of that magnitude. And that, if you look at it, you can see where these high waters came up and actually cut that particular area. So I'm not in support of approving this abandonment for just giving away people's value and property. I'd be willing to make a motion to deny the abandonment.
and I would second that.
More discussion?
No, I mean, I don't, given you're talking 100 foot on each side, well, almost 480 feet long, you got a whole acre of property, like Commissioner Moody said, we were probably just talking the taxable value, the actual selling value is probably a little higher than this, so I wouldn't be for giving away taxpayers.
You would be what?
I would not be for just abandoning this property. I mean, if we're gonna get rid of it, we need to put it on the market for sale and, given it, we deem there's no county, we don't have any use for it at all, then I'm for selling it, putting it up for sale.
Okay.
We have not gone through the exercise to see if there's a use for it. But if that's the direction of the board, then we can go through that exercise if you'd like.
You're saying that.
I have a question. Can you sell a right of way? Is that different from real property owned by the county? Is it subject to a different, methodology of disposal, if you would?
Okay, number 13 is the one with the 100-foot wide and the 480-foot long. Is that a right of way or is that a road? Which is a street?
They're one and the same. They're right of ways. Right of ways that were part of the Steinhatchee plat. Both the alley and the First Street are both right of ways.
Well, if you can't sell it, then you can give it away. Does that make sense?
I don't know if you're opposed to it because it's wetland, why would you sell it to someone?
I'm not, okay, that was one, but I'm not opposed to it because it's wet. Mr.
And
Bishop,
to the question, you know, the board, the board has the right to petition to close a road. Not abandon, but has the right to close. This gentleman would probably be upset about that if the board turns him down and then decides to close it. Y'all follow what I'm saying?
Well, I'd like to resubmit that the only usable property would be the property along 7, 8, and 9. The rest of it is definitely wetlands. I've had it surveyed by a wetlands company out of Tallahassee, Florida Land Services, come out and establish the boundaries of the wetland, to answer Mr. Newman's question. So the only usable property would be, I guess, the 150 foot by 50 foot, and half of that has been fenced since before I bought the property. So
So the fence, what's the significance of the fence if it's still owned by the taxpayer?
well, I guess, Mr. Page is able to keep that property, mowed and manicured, and obviously he's using it. It's
Right.
fenced into his property.
But the people still own the property.
I
It's the county's property.
never said they didn't.
No, I'm just
I
trying
just
to make
said-
sure that I'm understanding clearly that this is the right of way, the actual footage that Taylor County owns. But it's fenced by an individual.
That's correct.
So, I mean, I'm not sure if that's a plus. What's the plus? I mean, because the people can't use it.
I didn't say it was a plus. All I'm saying is that half of the right of way is already fenced. So if you're telling me that I can fence that and use that as I want, like the other property
I'm
owner,
not telling you that.
so I guess I'm confused now.
What I would say is, I don't think an individual has the right to fence off the county's property for their personal use, is what I'm saying, and that's what I would tell you.
And what I'm saying to you, sir, is that it's already fenced off.
Perhaps it needs to be removed.
Well, that's beyond my purview. That's
That's
all I was doing.
But that's what I'm saying to you is the county still owns this right of way, so it's the taxpayer's property, and an individual doesn't have the right to fence it and then tell the people that they gotta stay off their own property.
I understand that, sir. I understand that. And that's why we come to try and get it closed to where I can make it usable property legally.
They use wetland?
No. Once again, lot 9, 8, and 7 is the only usable property there. Along that right of
And
way.
by use, you mean for development purposes, I guess?
That's correct.
Right, so, but there's other uses other than development, I would stipulate.
Yeah, sure, it's a pretty good garbage.
No, I'm talking about for a green space or for preserving these type areas environmentally, not for garbage dumping. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. There are uses beyond just clear it off, fill it in, you know, and put another house or trailer or something else on there. So there are uses beyond just clear it off or sell it or things of that nature.
okay, yes, ma'am.
It just sounds like to me that someone else has decided that they would fence off part of the property. You didn't, obviously, you didn't have anything to do with that. But I'm in agreement with you. I don't think that, we should allow somebody to fence off, property that belongs to the taxpayers. So, you know, and that can be taken care of.
Sure.
LaWanda, I'd like for you to check into that. But going back to what you're here for, I understand that for some reason, you would like to have part of that property. And I don't need to know why you just would like to have part of the property. But what I think I'm hearing from everyone else is, or most of the board, is that we no longer want to abandon taxpayer property. It might be something that, that we just leave as is, or we can discuss if we want to sell it and divide it between y'all. But I think it's been pretty clearly stated here today that we're not in the business anymore of abandoning taxpayer property.
Okay. Did I hear a motion? What happened?
Deny the matter.
Motion set, all in favor saying aye? Aye. Okay, we will not abandon. Number 14, board to hold a public hearing set for this date at 9:05 a.m. or as soon after as possible to consider adoption of resolution to abandon an alley in block 119 of the Steenhatchee subdivision of C.D. King and Company. Want to read that by title only?
Yes.
Public hearing?
Motion?
Motion second, read by title only. Mr. Bishop?
Be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners of Taylor County, Florida, and I'm reading from the second. Paragraph number 2, the description is the alley line in block 119 of the Steenhatchee subdivision as per the map or plat. I'm not going to read the meets and bounds legal description for you. You can read that in the resolution. It's a public hearing.
Public hearing is now open for a public hearing. On number 14, the board to consider the public hearing. Does anyone from the public like to speak to item number 14?
Do you want to speak?
It's the same as the road closure, actually. It's just to be able to go in there and clear that strip of woods out. You know, and that one there would actually have further ramifications. If I could get, that closed, then I would put on my side a road in, an access road to get to the lots on the back side of the property.
I have the same opinion as the previous agenda item. I mean, in this, if we look at the values of what these two, or what all this square footage is, I believe it's over $90,000 value. And I just can't say that it's the right thing to do for people's sake to abandon that kind of value. I don't think it's responsible. And again, I would be in support of denying this abandonment.
And I would have the same objection also as we did with the previous item. Again, I don't think we should abandon and give away taxpayer property. So, I'm not in favor of that.
Anyone else?
I would object to abandoning the property. I make a motion to not abandon.
Second?
Motion second, all in favor saying aye? We go to item number 15, the board to hold the annual public hearing set to this date, 9/15, soon after. Had to receive input from the public, the local transportation disadvantage program.
I believe, Ms. Evans is not with us this morning, but Melody Cox is on the line.
Melanie, you on the line?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm here to give your annual update on the Transportation Disadvantage Program.
Okay.
Last year, there were 10,718 trips on Big Bend Transit, which is down about 2,800 from the year before, but as you know, COVID and the pandemic had a huge impact on that. 2,891 trips were for medical purposes. 2,341 were for employment. 2,008 were to attend school. 1,551 were for people going out to get groceries and food. and 1,927 trips were for general purposes, which was up substantially over the year before. And I would imagine that's because of the impact of COVID. We are seeing increases this year, and that's because we all know the cost of gas is rising. It is still $2 to ride the shuttle round trip on the Big Bend Transit, and we do make stops at 24 locations in the community. I do want to let you know that we had no complaints, there were no accidents, and there was only one case where we were not able to meet the need of a passenger needing to go to a location, and that's because the shuttle was already booked to locations that day. The program also funds $20,444 towards grant staff. And that's where we're at on this program. As a whole, it was another successful year, and there was a great deal of use with the shuttle. Do you have any questions, or does the public have any questions?
Or there anyone from the public have any questions for Ms. Melanie Cox? What about on the board?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment.
Go ahead.
This is a great program that we provide. It's very beneficial to many people, as you can hear some of the things that Melody told us. And I'm telling you, the people that use it are very grateful that it's there. I'm proud to serve on that board, and I'll keep supporting this program as long as I'm here.
Okay, good. I concur. Anyone else? Okay, with that, do we have to have a motion to accept this report?
Motion to approve the report.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay.
Thank you, Melody.
Thank you all. You know, this program is very near and dear to my heart. It was my favorite program to run over the years, so thank you so much for your support.
Okay, thank you. All right, we go to 15A, Senator Lorraine Alston, bringing some money.
Let's just get right to the point.
When I was here last time, you said just bring the truck full of money and drop it off, and I'm almost kind of doing that. So how are y'all doing this morning? Thank you.
How are you?
I'm great. It's good to see you. So I wanted to just give you a quick update. We just finished the session last Monday. We went a little bit into overtime to finish the budget. And you know what, everybody, there's a lot of, I would say, big items that got a lot of press, but I think the real issues of this session were the victories that we have for small counties. This is the first time I've been in the legislature in all my years that we've actually had resources, and I made it my mission to make sure that it didn't all go to the people that scream the loudest, that have the biggest delegations, that our small counties got our fair share. And I stood right here in the last year, I guess, at our delegation meeting, and we've been working very closely with all of you and with the county administrator on your specific requests. And there were, Commissioner Beagle and all of you specifically asked about broadband funding. And at the last second, we were able to get $400 million for broadband, and a significant portion of that will go to small counties. And I'm going to meet with your county administrator after this meeting to figure out the local technology planning team and how we're going to make sure those dollars get out the door in ways that really impact our small counties. But specifically, you guys had, I think, 4 or 5 specific requests, and I'm happy to share that the courthouse improvements at $510,000 were included in the budget, and $4.6 million for the jail. Now, of course, they still have to survive the governor's veto from the pen. So you all do what you can on that front to make sure he knows that these are important projects. And I will also do that. I've already sent my list to the folks at Tax Watch, who, they identified the budget turkeys, and I've made sure that they know which ones are ours that really we do have statewide significance for you all to be able to upgrade your buildings and have a secure, jail. Those are important projects in communities where you don't have the resources to pay for them otherwise. And, there's a couple things, the fire station, the Steinhatchee Public Safety, and the sports complex that we did not get. But there is an additional $25 million in the Rural Infrastructure Fund. So we will see if that's a possibility for some of those going forward. We got an additional $50 million in the Scrap and Scott program, and I know that's so important for our small counties. And there is $15 million to fiscally constrain law enforcement officers. So I know there was an issue, we were pressing on our sheriff's offices were feeling the heat of the increase in correctional officer pay because their deputies were then wanting to go work for the higher wages there. So there's $15 million to help bring deputies' pays up. There's pay raises across the board for state employees at every level, which is 5.38%, which is such a boon for Leon County. And I know it's that those pay increases for state employees are felt throughout the state and throughout North Florida. So that is a big, big, big win. And there's some near misses, I think. The constitutional amendment for additional homestead exemption for teachers and law enforcement officers. It's great for those folks doing those jobs, but it's really, it could be a killer for small counties, and we got to carve out for fiscally constrained counties. So I'm really excited about where we are, and I know that there's a lot of need going forward. I know there's some issues with the flooding, and potentially, I don't know if there are some ways that you all can use some of the federal dollars and even some of the additional federal infrastructure dollars that will be coming, that I would, pledge to work with you all to make sure the things that we didn't get funded, that I will continue to try to bring that dump truck full of money, so that we can, no, but I mean, people say money doesn't solve all problems, but it sure does help. And I think that, if we can little by little find the things that you need and scour through the budget and scour through the process to figure out, we can use this pot of money for this, and we can go after this grant dollar, then we can, working together, really, you all can serve your constituents, and we can, move Taylor County forward. So I am excited to stand here with good news, and I'd love to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you for being here to bring us up to date on all the good work that you've done and everyone else that's helped you along the way. You mentioned flooding, and in my district, that is a big issue for me right now. We were out yesterday visiting several places. There's homes that have water all the way up under their houses, and it's just a really big problem. So any way that we can get any assistance with that flooding would be greatly appreciated. And I really appreciate the fact that y'all have looked after the law enforcement officers. But I sit here and I think about the firefighters. You seldom hear anything about the firefighters, and they're out there, they're putting their lives on the line too. So maybe at some point y'all could just consider them. They serve an essential part of our community, and their wages are low also.
Yeah, and we have done over the years some priority legislation for firefighters dealing with benefits and cancer, preconditions of cancer and those sorts of things. But it's a very good point. So
I thank you for the hard work you've done. Keep up with it, and just keep on keeping on. Come see us anytime.
appreciate it.
Remember that dump truck.
Well, I was here at the end of last year, and went to visit the senior center. And I'm excited to say, they were having a really tough time with some reimbursements from Sunshine Health. They were trying to get in the refrigerator, and so we were able to shake the trees and get them some of that money. Hopefully they'll be able to use that that money that they got to buy the refrigerator so that they could keep serving meals. And so those, some of those little tiny things that, seem like a little tiny thing for our legislative office are really, really, really big deals. And any way we can help with those, just, making a phone call or shaking loose something, please, that's our job. I have Michael Kurtz, who's one of my newest legislative assistants with me today. So he's, Austin, who was my Taylor County designee, is serving our country and has been deployed to Guam. So he is on a little bit of a sabbatical, serving our country. And so Michael is taking place over Taylor County in his stead. So this is his first visit. We're gonna show him the donut shop on the way out of town.
Good idea.
My son's always happy when I go to Taylor County because I'm bringing back a box of donuts. So any other questions or thoughts, Mr. Chairperson?
I just want to thank you and your staff for our strong partnership. I feel very blessed to have the relationship we have with our legislators, and I think it has a very positive impact on Taylor County, and thank you.
Yes. And Representative, and our offices work directly together, and I know he's got a person that's here, so it's important that we stay on a united front and work as hard as we can for all of our small counties. So I appreciate our relationship as well. So, all right, y'all can get back to business.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
On the flooding Pam brought up, has anybody ever, came in like the, Swanee River Management, Army Corps of Engineers? And the reason I'm bringing this up is I got a couple of creeks on my property. But have they come in and ever looked at maybe getting on the ground, walking these creeks and seeing if they need to be cleaned out and stuff, where the water will flow a lot better than it does instead of standing? I don't know if anybody's ever looked at that or whatever, if there's money out there for people to do that. I don't know, but I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, I know on the other side of my district in Calhoun County, I actually, there's some issues with storm debris in the Chipola and the Albertville River. And so we got the Water Management District in a boat to go and ride the water, and people who know the rivers point out exactly where the issues are. So if that's something that we can help,
We've got an area called the Bay out here, and it floods, it comes this way, a lot of it does. I think Jim's got some land connected to it too, and everybody in Perry is affected by it. But I think they rerouted that water a couple of times. Excuse me, Pam?
Yeah, or when you get through,
Oh, okay.
I'll answer.
And I think if they looked at the whole, from start, these small creeks, large creeks, canals, channels, if they went through them and looked at them and seen what they could take out, clean out, get the flow, not to make it run down like a river, but just to get the flow a little better. Because if you notice, you've got a lot of standing water in this county. You're probably 70% of water on it. That's all I had.
Well, and I'm actually going to be meeting with the Water Management District on Thursday, right? So I'll find out, and you may have the answer to that, or somebody else may have the answer, but I will certainly ask that question, so thank you.
What I wanted to say was, I met yesterday with LaWanda and Kenneth and Scott, and we discussed just what you're talking about, Gary, because, you're in my area, and the creek runs through and it's flooded along the way in a lot of other areas too. So we do have plans to look at the areas where it looks like it has been stopped up somewhere, and start there and back up and see if there's something along the way upstream that's blocking that, just what you're talking about. Now, we're not gonna be able to walk the whole creek bed all the way from the beginning to the end, but we are gonna be looking at those areas, just like at one house, where it's up in the yard. We're gonna go back up and see if there's something up there, and perhaps there is. So yeah, we're addressing that.
Well, what's odd with me, like where I'm at, coming out of the bay, for example, for 10 or 12 years, I never had water coming through my creek or in my yard. And it can rain 2 inches and my yard's flooded. Well, you've been out there and looked at everybody's property. Yeah. So something's changed in the dynamics of all that. I don't know what has. I really don't. But if you go 12 years without having any problem, then all at once it starts, I don't know. It's just odd.
We're surely fixing to address that by walking in there.
And we are still working with Army Corps of Engineers. We actually entered into an agreement with them, I think 2 years ago now, for a floodplain mitigation study. So we are actively working with Army Corps of Engineers to try to address some of these flooded areas.
As Swanee River Water Management.
Yeah, the water management district is a underutilized resource, I think. You know, and I'm realizing that I work a lot, because I have a lot more counties in the north Florida water management district, which is why I'm gonna go, because I'm getting 3 more counties in Senate District 3. We're adding in, the redistricting adds in, Swanee, Lafayette, and Dixie, so I'll have a lot more of the Swanee.
You may see that some of those effects, Dixie and Lafayette County neighbor Taylor County.
Yeah.
You're gonna see some of the same type impacts. And
Yeah.
I think in some of those places, I wouldn't speak for water management, but they're running into the same type issues, and we're dealing with the same waters, because they may come from that area and then end up in these areas. So,
Water doesn't make county lines.
no, I mean, it doesn't, you know, where it would like to, whatever it would like to, and however long it would like to. So these kind of things have been going on for some time. There just doesn't seem to be a magical answer that addresses each situation. So I wouldn't turn away any help, I would say it that way. But I do know in a lot of respects, you know, water management seeks to not get rid of the water, but they're looking at places and ways to restore areas to recharge the aquifer. And I'm making no accusations of what, you know, any kind, but I do understand that's key components of their mission.
I'll never forget looking at the images on that very screen, the last time I was here, maybe 2 times ago, when y'all were, and just looking at the water table.
It's ongoing, and it's still, I would dare tell you, it's just as high right now.
And I emailed them last night to ask them if they could send us some updated information, because that's my suspicion.
I mean, it's not a complaint, it's just a statement of fact. I mean, we had gotten to a place where some of those had subsided, but given the last 7 to 10 days, we're right back where we were in August, and still dealing, trying to help folks who are working through.
All right, we'll put our heads together. Always a pleasure. I appreciate y'all.
So we can say water don't run uphill to 60's level, right?
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. County Administrator, board to consider phase 2 of the special assessment study, solid waste services agenda by the county administrator.
Good morning. So back in 2021, we contracted with Neighbors Giblin and Nickerson to complete phase 1 of the professional services and specialized assistance for a solid waste study. That phase 1 has been substantially completed, and due to the timing, this is March, if the board wishes to consider either increasing the assessment or leveling the assessment for next fiscal year, I need some direction from you now to see which way you'd like to go, if you wish to consider that at all. The board did adopt a resolution of intent that is necessary if you wish to change the assessment. But I'm basically coming to the board asking, number 1, for authorization if you wish to move forward, and then we will need funding to complete that.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to say that I would be in support of authorizing this phase 2. And I would also be in support of leveling this assessment. I think that's in line with things that we're seeing, the issues that we've been facing in the solid waste fund. So at the appropriate time, I would make that in the form of a motion.
Okay. We need some more discussion.
I would second that, but I feel like we're getting more and more camper trailers, more and more people living in camper trailers in Taylor County.
Right.
And them people got a kitchen in that camper trailer just like we got in our home.
Yes, sir.
They go in the grocery store and buy just as much stuff, and they cut trees down in their yard, they carry them to the dump. When they have an old tire, they carry them to the dump. They got old metal, they carry them to the dump. It's just, the whole thing is, we need to get everybody on the same level.
And that's why I made a motion to level that fee.
It needs to be level. And I mean, it's a no-brainer. What we're facing, you can look at the figures, we run over $80,000 last year at our dump sites.
Yes.
Mr. Woman, we've talked about this for years, and it's finally come to, you look at the figures right there, and it's catching up with us. Yeah.
If I may just, give you some additional data. Just looking at the RV permits by year, in 2019, there were 69. In 2020, there were 117. 2021, 135. And we've had over 30 just from January until now. And now, that's just giving you some raw data. I don't know how that compares to other growth in Taylor County, but we have seen an increase in RV permits, and we've also had an increase in business tax licenses for RV parks. So from what I understand, historically, we may have one business license a year, and last year there were over 10, right? There were 10 RV parks. So, not to, try to take a stance in this discussion, I just want you to see the same numbers that we're looking at as far as RV permits. So you may wish to consider that, in the discussion.
Yeah.
Do we know have any numbers to know what that would do to whether we went fractional or leveled the numbers off? Do we know what I'm just saying fractional, if it was 200, then, you 1/3 of the 200. Do we know what the number, if we leveled it, what would that do to the?
My assumption would be, and if you decide to move forward, they will have to update the numbers. But if you're talking about leveling it, then what that would do is so folks who live, who have an RV or hunt camp, if that's the way you want to go, would come up, and then the remainder of residential assessments would come down. I don't know how much it would come down at this time, because we need to update the numbers, but that would be the expectation.
Typically, if we went to the leveling direction, then we're just saying the 140, maybe, it'll be less probably across the board.
Yes, sir.
It should have equal costs for each user,
Right.
the user fee.
Okay, okay.
Okay, that's 140 a year. The leveling.
I don't know what the number will
Don't know
be.
what the number is.
Yes.
The number have to be updated.
The numbers would have to be updated. And so phase 2, if you decide to move forward, they would update the numbers, and then they would bring that back to the board. If you wish to move to phase 2, the fiscal impact will be $14,500, and you would have to authorize that coming from contingency reserves. And then there could be as much as around $13,000 for first-class mailers to be sent out if you decide to move forward. And unless the trim notice could be changed in a fashion that would meet the statutory.
I talked to Shauna, It's okay. And she said the trim notice would stay the same. So,
Okay, so we cannot.
Yeah, so that won't be
Thank you.
an option.
So we're estimating about $13,000 for the notifications to be mailed out to those folks who pay the assessment. So that's another consideration if you wish to utilize funding to move forward.
I'm sitting here, something just doesn't make sense to me. If we're losing money in that department, which obviously we are, then why would you possibly reduce somebody's fee from 140 because you're gonna bring the other one up? I mean, if you're gonna do that, why wouldn't you bring the other one up to the 140 instead of reducing? That just doesn't make any sense to me. And then the other comment that I wanna make, and I've said in the past, and I'm not gonna go back on my word. I think that if you have a hunting camp and it's seasonal, I don't want to see those people have to pay the same thing because it's not fair, they're not there. However, there are lots of people that are living in campers and in sheds that have been converted to living quarters. They should have to pay the same thing that the rest of us do. I'm not in disagreement with that, but I do not want to charge the hunting camps that are specifically used for hunting seasonal. I don't want to include that. But again, I'm just a little bit concerned about why would you lower something? And because, are you afraid then just to bring the campers and the sheds up to the 140 that we've been paying? And if you look at other counties, 140 is, listen, that's probably the lowest. Gary, aren't we about the lowest of anybody
I
around
think
here?
I found one that was less. I can't remember who it was. It was like $20, but we're about $40 to $60 out of the ballpark.
So that just doesn't make sense to me.
I understand, and I had the same reaction initially. I think Gary and I both did when there was any discussion, and this is all a possibility. Again, the numbers haven't been updated as of yet. But what this study does is create a budget based upon the parcels, based upon, the minimum wage impact, based upon our current expenditures. And they basically back into the numbers. So if our average budget is, whatever it is, then they take the number of assessments and they back into that number. So what I'm saying is we wouldn't want to increase the budget unless we can substantiate it, because that's part of the reason that we have the study done, so we have sound numbers and they're defensible numbers. I understand what you're saying, and I don't know that the numbers would absolutely go down when they do update the study.
Okay, so if there is a raise, that would go toward solid waste, right? That would go in that fund. And I'm a little bit concerned here where I see on the second page, when we talk about the minimum wage impact, and that might lead someone to think that, okay, we're gonna raise solid waste because we have this problem coming up to get everybody, the $15 and adjust everybody else. And I don't think that we should make it look like that we're raising solid waste to support the minimum wage when that solid waste funding would go into the solid waste. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, that's only for that department. The numbers, the minimum wage impact is only for the solid waste department. I just wanted y'all to see what that part of the impact would be.
Okay, so if there's a motion made, which I think there will be, to adopt this, then are the hunting camps going to be in a different category, or you're saying they're going to be all in the same? And I won't be able to support that, even though I do support people that are living full-time in these places. I think they should pay the same. But if you're going to leave hunting camps in there, that puts me in a position where I've said, I'm not going to, so I want the public and everybody else to understand why I would not be able to support it. Only the cost of the hunting camps, that's the only reason.
Yeah, and what we need to look at too, and me and LaWanda talked about this, with the way the economy is, we probably need to look at being proactive in the future too. We're looking at it from last year, and that's a pretty good assessment, but this year is gonna be really aggressive, I'm sure. But the next year, we don't know what's down the road, so this is gonna be, I don't know if a yearly thing to look at or whatever, because I got a bad feeling that this thing here, and this may be the worst year we see with gas prices, material, trying to get stuff done, our equipment costs as far as repair and maintenance, all these items here, we may be short funded this year. And if we go flat on the budget this coming year, we might need to look at this different than we have in the past because of the economy. Like, I went down to get railroad ties for the roll-off site. Here's a good example. We were paying $8. They're $32 a piece now. And, yeah, and that's where we're at. So material and stuff like that, when we do these budgets from last year and everything, like Shady Grove, we allocated 72 to redo the compactor and stuff like that. It could be anywhere from maybe 8,000 to 10,000 with the concrete and all that, the way everything's went up. So it's gonna be a challenge trying to get this thing, you know, we're used to 1-2% increases. We're gonna be looking at, you know, stuff that we can't control it. Nobody can, I don't think, so. Gas prices.
And to Gary's point, we do expect an increase in some of our costs. Now, for those projects, that's being funded by 1 cent sales tax. But I think the ultimate goal is to try to move this department so it's self-sustaining. And so what GSG will, or Neighbors Goodwin and Nickerson, them together would bring us is a 5-year outlook with an average. So we could really look at 5 years down the line and if you wish to change the assessment, where that would need to be. I just need to give them some direction if we wish to move forward. And as far as this year, even though we did change the decals and we went to that effort to try to secure our sites, when I look at our tipping fees, I see a little bit of a decrease this month or last month in our tipping fees, but we're really just kind of holding the line because we know that we are having more and more people utilizing those sites.
The one other thing that I want to add too is, again, you know, I've said I agree with the people that are living in these places to have to pay the same thing, but what bothers me is I don't think, from what I've heard from staff, that people taking household garbage to these roll-offs is creating our problem. So we're gonna be charging all the people that are taking their household garbage there for the sins of the few that go there and dump their C and D. And it's been established in the past that has been the real problem, is the C and D, things like that, not household garbage. So it's just a concern for me that we're gonna charge these people for these other people's wrongdoing. And I don't know why we could not put something in place that where we charge, if you're gonna take that there, you charge it. Don't charge me for his C and D, let him pay for it.
Question up to that. Last weekend, I went to the dump with a trailer load of limbs I cut down off trees in my yard. I pulled up to the dumpster there, and this gentleman pulled up behind me. And I got out and started throwing it over in the dumpster, limbs and pots and stuff. He got out of his truck, he come up there and helped me throw my stuff in there. And I thanked him, you know, for helping me. And I said, well, you got a truckload too. I said, I'll help you. So I pulled on up, and he pulled up to the dumpster. He had a pickup truck just about level full of oak limbs he cut down oak in his yard. And I got to talk to him. He was from Michigan. He moved down here from Michigan, moved to Taylor County Garden Place. He was cleaning it up around the house he bought. He told me before we left, this pickup truckload of stuff right here would cost me $28 just pulling up to the site in Michigan. He said, that's extra. Everybody that brings anything in a pickup truck or a trailer, they had to pay $28 to unload. And he said, that's just, he said it was about $16 or $17 for a while, and it went $28 before we left up there. And that really said it in concrete to me, we are missing the boat on that. That's this $80,000, a lot of this $80,000 we run over last year, that right there.
Yeah.
You know, C and D and limbs and that kind of thing. Metal is the only thing we even break even on. When people bring metal there, they sell that, and Gary told me they break even on the metal part. But everything else, besides household garbage, we go in the hole on. I mean, that's what we really need to do. He said they had, for a long time, they just charged you by truckload. Then he said the C&D, they had a scale at the dump site he went to. And he said they weighed it, them C&D people. Me and him just stood there and talked about our problem that we have. And he said that's how they solved it up there. They had a scale, they weighed the truck coming up for C&D, and they paid it, what, $28 by the ton, you know.
Yeah, if we go to phase 2, according to this then, we're not even addressing the C&D. We're just saying, hey, let's raise these people that are living in the campers and all, and let's maybe lower the whole price of 140. I don't think we're addressing the real problem. And so, LaWanda, is that just gonna be brushed under swept under the rug, and we're just gonna do this and think everything is gonna be okay?
No, I still think that we need to pursue an option, a solution to our solid waste that is not compacted. That can be limbs, that can be C&D. We may want to consider furniture, although I think that's a gray area. But as far as the timing needed to implement this, if that's how the board chooses to move forward, I would need the board to give me some direction on this. And that doesn't mean we will not concurrently, work on other solutions.
But, I mean, we've discussed this forever. And I think it's a generalized statement that, we'll look at this and we'll consider this, but history says that we'll be talking about this in 6 months, and nothing has been done about C&D. So how, who, and when is this going to happen?
As far as a solution for C&D?
Yeah.
Well, I believe that, we've discussed several times, several potential solutions for C&D, and they don't seem to be palatable to the board. I would think it would be difficult to try to collect money for C&D at every site. And I don't think that the board has indicated to us that you wish anything less than collecting money at every site. And that's where we're running into some issues trying to work that out, where we can actually make that happen.
And we have recognized that is a problem. We've discussed it a lot of times, but we recognize the problem, we talk about it, time goes by, and maybe it's brought up again, and we talk about it. And so we're only addressing today half the problem, which seems to be the people living in campers and not paying their fair share. I'd like to see us take a serious look and try to find solutions to C&D instead of kicking the can down the road, like Commissioner Moody, you've said many times.
We need a scale in Steinhatchee, and we need a scale out there at Carlton Cemetery site. And somebody has C&D in Taylor County, they could carry them to either direction. They could bring it to Perry, they could carry it to Steinhatchee. And that would kind of, the way Steinhatchee is growing, that area needs a scale. And we need a scale at Carlton Cemetery, where all the people, most of the people are. And then, they could drive all the way from Shady Grove, or if they wanted to pay at the scale here in Perry, they could drive at Shady Grove, they could drive to the landfill up there in Greenville, same way there. I mean, that's what some people do, they carry their stuff on to Greenville, and they have to pay, and it's scale up there. We need to get to the point where we can handle this thing with a scale on both ends of the county and get that behind us. We call it.
Thank you. Look like you need to know whether you need to go forward with this.
Yes.
Okay. I think we need to go forward.
Yes, sir, I would agree.
Now, this other thing we need to talk about, the scales, we need to talk about that another time and put the scale.
That's true.
And scale up another, so we can charge if we need to. And the collection side will be worked out. I mean, collected money could be worked out at another meeting. Okay?
So I would need authorization to move forward with the study and to transfer from reserves to fund the cost of implementation and the mail outs.
You need a motion.
Motion.
Need a motion?
Second.
Motion and second. All
That
in
is
favor?
also to level the fee.
If that's the direction of the board,
That's
to
my
level the
motion.
fee.
Okay,
Second that motion.
all right. Motion and second, all in favor, saying aye? Aye.
Mr. Chair, it'll be a no for me for the reason that I stated, because of the hunting camps, being included in that. And that's the reason, only reason for my no vote.
Thank you. You got another one?
Yes, sir.
Board to consider approval of easement agreement with Duke Energy. Is that it? 16?
Yes. So this is basically a utility easement that would provide ingress egress in order to maintain newly improved electrical facilities located at Forest Capitol Hall. This was recently upgraded by the TDC in order to facilitate vendors at chamber-sponsored events. So basically, the existing service was not adequate for the vendors. I think there may have been some impact on the campers. So that service was upgraded and paid for by the TDC. And then after that was all complete, Duke Energy asked for this easement agreement.
Motion to approve.
Motion and second, all in favor, saying aye? Go ahead.
Thank
You got the informational items now?
you. And Commissioner English, you may need to help me with this, but the Glenn Ratliff dedication ceremony at the sports complex is being planned for April the 2nd, which is on a Saturday, which is the opening day for the Taylor County Baseball Association. I just wanted to have you mark your calendars, and we will keep you informed of times as we work with the Taylor County Baseball Association and the family to organize. I did reach out to his daughter this morning, who is the spokesperson for the family, to ask for some additional information.
Good. Yeah, they'll have the daughter throw the first pitch of the year, and it's recognition of her daddy as well as they decided that Glenn would have it no other way than the ballpark be full of folks and, recognize, they're changing the name, renaming that park. Anyway, that'll be Saturday.
Okay. All right.
Also, we have a workshop scheduled for a week from today. If you have any items that you'd like to be included on the workshop, please let me know so we can start organizing that agenda.
That's 29th.
At 6 p.m. And that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any concerns or comments from the public online? There's none? Commissioner Newman? Commissioner Beagle?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about tournaments. Been talking about this for 12 years, and we still don't have scheduled tournaments like I would like to see. We've done everything in our sports complex. We've made improvements. We've skimmed the fields now. What other excuse do we have not to have tournaments? That would bring a lot of people into Taylor County. They're going to spend money when they get here. It's something that our citizens could go out on a Saturday or whenever and enjoy a tournament. And so I think it's time that we start scheduling tournaments. I'd like to see, by the time April is over, I'd like to see a schedule of tournaments, not just one or two, but I'd like to see them go throughout the year. And I'd like for this to be an ongoing process. Whatever you have to do to work it out, but we need to be utilizing our sports complex by having tournaments. The other thing, and we might can put that on the workshop agenda too, if we need to. And the other thing is, I had a citizen to ask me about these side-by-side Polaris vehicles. I don't know what you call them, but she was talking.
ATVs?
Yeah, she's got, some of these people have these, she said it's bigger than a golf cart, and what could we do to enable them to use it on some of the county roads? She was talking about the price of gas, and she thought that would be a good idea. If people could use them, it would save on their gas, and so I don't know if it's a state.
I believe it is. Mark, isn't that the case? Sorry, I mean,
No, it's okay,
I
yeah.
think that the vehicle, if it's built in another state, is that the way it works? Then
Well-
possibly there's an exemption for a tag?
It depends on okay, so South Dakota will put tags on these UTVs. So that's you go to dirt road legal, and you can get tags for them. So they're all going to listen one second real quick. When DHS&B realizes they're losing money on this, I think they will get on board and start allowing people to do that. We have a couple in town on their manufacturer certificate of occupant, where it was made, or origin, they're listed as a motorcycle. You can give tags to motorcycles by state law. You can't to UTVs or ATVs. So it's a state issue with DHS&B, not with the legislature, but I think that DHS&B, once they see that there is a need for it, because it's about $400 to go through South Dakota and get your tag, but you're living in Florida with a South Dakota tag.
So South Dakota is the only state that allows you to do it together.
The only one that I know of.
So is the answer for us to start doing?
I don't have they're safer than a motorcycle to me.
Yeah.
They have seat belts and roll bars and everything else, so they're a lot safer than a motorcycle to me, so that's just my opinion though.
Yeah, it might be a small county versus big county.
Right, very much so. Yeah, you could get a Brevard or Hillsborough that says absolutely not, we don't need UTVs on,
Right.
our highways and stuff. Yeah,
Interesting.
could be.
UTV, is that driver's license also? Under
Yes.
14, under 12?
Well, it depends on where you are. Yeah.
One of our locals, I mean, he drives his from, Perry all the way to Greenville every day, back and forth. He drives up every day, but, and I always thought that with South Dakota doing that are we missing out on additional revenue?
Yeah.
There's so many of them that are other, owners of these UTVs that have South Dakota license plates, so it means something to them to get it done, so I just wonder why wouldn't we pull that revenue into Florida?
So so the South Dakota license plate is legal, it makes it street legal? That's interesting.
Alabama too, I believe now. I think Redmont's got an Alabama tag on it.
Well, he's got a Florida tag on his because his MCO said, motorcycles. So I don't know how that happened, but that's what it had on there.
And Michael's taking good notes.
Okay, yes.
Even though I wasn't.
No, it's fine. No problem.
Yeah, you're gonna bring out the environment.
Yeah.
That's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And engines say that.
That's right. That's exactly
There's gonna
right.
be a real fight on that, I'll bet you.
Yeah. That's probably why the state hasn't touched it.
Electric, right?
Well, I just, I'd like to see it where we could, people could use them on the road. With the gas the way it is, we may all have to get one and start driving.
It's like,
Bicycle can do it right now.
it sure is.
Thank you,
That's all we
that's
got.
all.
Yeah.
I want to say again, thank you, Senator, for being here.
Yeah, thanks. I learn something new every time.
I don't have anything, but if it's okay, I'd like to answer Ms. Spiegel on her.
Go ahead. Yeah.
And why they haven't happened yet. So, yes, we did went through the process of skinning the field to get it all ready for tournaments. These tournament directors, I've been in contact with the tournament directors, and they do schedule out 1 year in advance. They do schedule, so they were trying to put us on the schedule for this spring and summer season, but, we really wasn't ready, and to be honest, we really didn't think we were gonna get the skin in the field until after the rec season had happened, but they were able to jump on it and get it done prior. But the schedules are already made, through the end of July, so we have our charge sheet pretty well ready, and we're about to put it in the hands of the directors, and they will start scheduling tournaments in the fall. And they'll schedule, one every 5 weeks. There's 2 directors dealing with right now, but there's pretty more than that could jump in into this, so those two would typically, they will schedule every, 5 weeks is what they're telling me. And they'll schedule it a year in advance, which would give staff, ample time to come in as far as, maintenance crew and concessions, whatever we end up doing there, so.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a concern to make sure we can
It's
staff.
something we done, we're just, they're full right now. If you look at the schedule, they don't have room to put another tournament.
Well, long as it's gonna happen, because I've been patient for 12 years.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd like to see us utilizing that beautiful complex, so thank you for that.
Let's steal those shoes on. Got even wrong from it.
Fine with it.
Good, Mr. Bishop?
I have one thing, and I was late, and it's my fault. Go back to number 8 on the consent items. If you look at the original agreement, we had venue. The new one doesn't have venue on it, so I would request that they put the venue of any litigation as a result of this be in Taylor County.
Okay.
I don't know whether that was a mistake by whoever did it, or they were trying to slip it by, so it ain't, I don't want it to slip by.
All right. You need a motion for that?
This is on the consent.
Continue. Motion second. Motion second. All in favor, say aye. Good.
Thank y'all.
Good. Now, 2 things, 3. We want tournaments, we need money, and the trash truck. Keep that on your agenda. All right, with that being said.
Second.
Yeah. You got anything for me?
Yes.